Have as agenda point for this meeting the government's new policy on the issuance of labor permits as published in the National Gazette on Friday, February 7, 2020. This is incoming document number 570, 2019-2020, dated February 14th, 2020. This meeting was requested by MPs C. Bijlani, R. Bryson, G.S. Heiliger Martin, and O. Otley. We go over to the agenda point. On February 14, 2020, Parliament received a letter that was IS 570 2019-2020 with a request from MP Bijlani, Bryson, Heiliger, and Otley for a meeting with the above-mentioned agenda point. This is in regards to the government's new policy on the issuance of labor permits as published in the National Gazette. The motivation and reason given by the 4 members of Parliament to request this meeting with the Minister is as follows. The Minister of Health, Labour and Social Affairs, VSA, has published a new policy to govern the issuance of labor permits. The new policy has prompted some opposition and concerns of potential adverse effects from various groups in the business sector, including the SHTA, the St. Martin Timeshare Association, Indian Merchants Association, St. Martin Marine Trade Association, and others. Specifically, in the opinion of the SHTA, the new policy will cause employers to hire less, and investors to invest less, resulting in a net loss of jobs. Reduction of foreign direct investments will be another indirect effect. Next to an economic impact, a societal one will occur. The undersigned also noted some of the confusion within the public as to the content and the actual intent behind the law itself. For that reason, the Parliament, hence the reason that Parliament should be made abreast of this topic as soon as possible, and the Minister and her relevant civil servants should be present to provide all with the relevant information. For that reason, in the request, in accordance with Article 28, Sub 2, with the provisions for civil servants attending and participating in committee meetings, we have also asked that the department heads and section heads of labor, as well as the Secretary General of VSI is here, and I thank the Minister for complying with the request of Parliament in that regard. With that, I will now give the floor to Minister Gordon Carty for any opening remarks or presentations at this time. Minister Gordon Carty, you have the floor.
Good morning. Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Niscout. And I welcome also all the MPs and Minister Durham. My staff here, Ms. Froston, we have SG Joy Arnell, Ms. Peggy Andros, and Natasha. I have the following open remarks and statement that I would like to start off with. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the members of Parliament for giving me the opportunity to share with you my indentations as it regards to the recently published employment permit policy. All the more, I have taken note of the concerns expressed through various medias regarding the policy. I am therefore glad to be able to explain not only the purpose of the new policy to you, but also the different parts of the policy. As you know, post-earmark construction projects are emerging at the moment and in the nearby future. The government has now invested substantial amounts of money in trainings in the construction sector and the hospitality industry at all in the entry level. Unfortunately, it turned out that the persons who took part in these training sessions and successfully completed them are still unemployed, or not sufficiently being employed. It is to be expected that several large construction projects will commence shortly. Think of the reconstruction of Great Bay Resort and the reconstruction of Princess Juliana Airport. Article 6 of the National Ordinance on Foreign Labor states, with the intention to secure the continuation of such project and to promote the availability of and increase the employment opportunities for the local workforce, the employment permit policy was introduced with condition based on Article 6 of the National Ordinance on Foreign Laborers. I would like to quote what was publicized. As per Article 6, Paragraph 1 in the National Ordinance on Employment of Foreigners, the Minister can impose conditions to an employment permit pertaining to the efforts that must be exercised by an employer to fill vacancies with suitable candidates from the local St. Martin market. The aftermath of Hurricane Irma has seen many foreigners employed with companies on St. Martin. In addition, several companies, even 2.5 years after Hurricane Irma, are still continuously filling and filing for labor permits renewals for foreign employees. Unemployment remains alarmingly high on St. Martin. This, even though various occupations of the growing pool of registered jobless persons match the vacancies posted by employers on St. Martin. This necessitates further objective restructuring of the requirements of employers to, within the vacancy time period, strive as much as possible to fill their vacancies with registered or unregistered job seekers in St. Martin. As such, to further define what constitutes suitable efforts for employers to fill their vacancies with persons from the local job market, therefore this exercise. I will also want to go a little bit more in depth into international laws which under St. Martin falls. Legal regulations of St. Martin, based on Article 81A, which is the Constitution of St. Martin, stipulates that we have to comply with the Charter of the Kingdom. This is substantiated by Article 43, Sub 1. Each of the countries shall promote the realization of fundamental human rights and freedom, legal certainty, and good governance. We have used this article in order for us to substantiate and also give us the reason to make sure that country St. Martin is in appliance and in compliance with this international rule. One of those human rights is certainly the right to work. We as a government need to prepare and make sure that job vacancies are filled primarily by our locals. That's their human rights. In the Constitution of St. Martin, there is an article that states the following. Agreements with other debts, Article 81B. Agreements with other powers and international law organizations to the extent that they have been ratified for St. Martin. One of those organizations is the United Nations, and in this case, the International Convention of Economic and Social Rights, which has ratified the kingdom with applicability in St. Martin since 1979. So these are things that we're supposed to have been already applying with from since 1979. It's not something that we are inventing it now. We have to be in compliance as a country, St. Martin, according to these rules. There are international rules where under St. Martin falls under. Article 6 is one of them. In Article 6, Sub A, everyone has the right to work, is something that we have we don't have to take it lightly. We have to take it in the sense that it's our main focus as a government to make sure that this article is executed at all times, not only by the government, but also in cooperation with the business institutions of our country. Article 6 states the following: the states parties to present covenant recognize the right to work, which includes the right of everyone to opportunity to gain his living by work which he freely chooses or accepts, and will take appropriate steps to safeguard this right. We as a government, we are in that position to safeguard that our unemployed local resident market get the fair chance and opportunity in order for them to be placed in the vacancies that there are available on the country. The second point of this article states, the steps to be taken by the state party to the present covenant to achieve the full realization of this right shall include technical and vocational guidance and training programs, policies and techniques to achieve steady economic, social, and cultural development, and full and productive employment under conditions safeguarding fundamental political and economic freedoms to the individual. Based on Labor Survey LFS 2018, unemployment was 6,636, as I already stated in one of my articles, sorry, in the press. What I have noticed lately in the media is that Consumer Coalition came up with an amount of 11,520 unemployed workers on St. Martin, using different statistics. So I base it only on 6,636, whilst Consumer Coalition had 11,520, which is almost double. I think this is a reason, alarming reason why we should consider to use the policy and to tighten up on the policy in order for us to safeguard that locals get the chance to a fair opportunity in working. 6.2, it states that we need to comply with a policy, and that's what we are basically doing. We are doing everything in the effort to make sure that country St. Martin basically is in compliance with international rulings that it falls under, which has not been done in the past. Legal regulations in St. Martin are, like I mentioned, the Article 81A and 81B, which we have substantiated with Article 43, Sub 1, from the Charter of Kingdom of Netherlands. And we're not even taking it further, because Article 43, Sub 2, relates that this effort is supposed to be a kingdom affair. But we're starting at the point where country St. Martin have to make sure to have done the necessary steps in order to guarantee that the population that is unemployed has the necessary fair chance to get employed. On another note, the third point that basically promote this policy for us to look into it and go more deeply into it is the fact of discrimination in labor market, employment, you can call it, or recruitment practices on St. Martin. In a public statement from my head of department, it was stated that here in St. Martin, there is ethnic recruitment or cultural recruitment taking place. So I take this serious because as a head of a department, she most likely know what she is talking about. So basically, if we have to react on that, that means there is discrimination taking place on St. Martin. So I'm hereby applying the following law to guarantee that basically the population does not get discriminated. We have the Employment Service Convention number 88, Article 1, that is since 1948. It says the following, and I quote, "Each member of the International Labour Organization for which this convention is in force shall maintain or ensure the maintenance of a free public employment service." Article 2 states, sub 2, "The essential duty of the employment service shall be to ensure in cooperation when necessary with other public and private bodies concerned the best possible organization of the employment market as an integral part of the national program for the achievement and maintenance of full employment and the development and the use of the productive resources. The employment service shall consist of a national system of employment offices under the direction of a national authority, which in this case is our NESC. The department has more than 10 years working in NESC, so I confide in the information that is given, and I act on the information that was given. We also have Article 9. The staff of the employment service shall be composed of public officials whose status and conditions of service are such that they are independent of changes of government and or improper external influences and subject to the needs of the service, are assured of stability of employment. Sub 2 of Article 9 says, subject to any conditions for recruitment to the public service which may be prescribed by national law or regulations, the staff of the employment service shall be recruited with sole regard to their qualifications for the performance of their duties. And 3, this means of ascertain such qualifications shall be determined by the competent authority, which basically is describing our NESC. The same International Covenant for Economic and Social Rights states in Article 2, I quote, "All persons in St. Martin shall be treated equally in equal circumstances. Discriminations on the grounds of religion, belief, political opinion, race, skin color, sex, language, national or social origin, membership of a national minority, assets, births, or any grounds whatsoever shall not be permitted." That's coming back to the ethnic recruitment and the cultural recruitment that is taking place on our country, St. Martin. So applying Article 9, applying Article 2, and applying Article 1, basically we are stating that with this policy, now we are basically giving all the locals a fair chance to work. Last but not least, I want to state that the policy in question falls under the discretionary authority of the Minister of VSA, nothing more and nothing less. It is up to the Minister of VSA to determine what constitutes the requisite amount of effort that employers must undertake in trying to fill vacancies with suitable local candidates. As such, if the Minister of VSR establishes that employers are not or insufficiently making efforts, or worse, actually circumventing the procedures by creatively presenting incorrect qualifications of functions, knowing that the foreigners will be performing other tasks, the Minister of VSR is completely at liberty, that is not to say obligated, to establish an objective framework that is clear for everyone to safeguard that the obligation in question, namely exercising best efforts, is adequately adhered to. Mr. Chair, what I also want to state with this statement is, in my tenure as minister, the 29th, basically of February would have been 3 months that I am in office. The amount of work permits that has crossed my desk is basically alarming. And what is very, I wouldn't want to use the word annoying, I would want to use the word alarming still, because at the end of the day, you know that there are unemployment out there. It's not a small amount that we can say we just push it under the table. We are talking of 6,636. This figure was not just brought across by me. We use data, official data, and data that apparently Consumer Coalition also used, and he came out with a higher amount, 11,520. It's almost double of what I had. And I took into account that basically when the surveys were conducted, that certain criterias were basically missed. And therefore I reached to 6,636. And he reached to 11,520. How is it possible that we can be signing off on work permits for functions that I'm sure it have locals can execute these type of jobs? And there are locals out there, even though they are qualified, they are willing to take a next job lower than what they are qualified for. It's a matter of presenting them to the market. So I find it hard to believe that the exercise to make the policy target our unemployed locals is being basically criticized right now by a selective group. It has to be a balance. The unemployment group have the right, just like anyone else, they have the right to work. They are human. They have family that they need to feed. People are talking about social economical effect. Social economical effect is not going to become worse because of this policy. The social economical effect has been deteriorating from way before, not because of this policy. The second thing I also want to state is, how can investors come in our country, and because we are presenting them with our policy to protect our market, our local labor market, that they consider that is not a good place for them to invest? My question is, do we really know what investors want? Investors basically, I'm a business person myself. Before getting into ministry, that I was approached, I'm a business person. I studied overseas. I see how people deal when it comes to foreigners and how the country reacts to foreigners. Our country protects the local market. There is no difference with St. Martin. We have been open for many years. We invite foreigners. We invite investors. There is nothing wrong with investing. St. Martin is a hub. That will not change because of this policy. St. Martin has a lot of potential. It has a lot of qualities that will remain there and continue attracting investors to come in. It's not that because of this policy they will stop investing into the country. This policy doesn't change St. Martin as a hub. It doesn't change that St. Martin has an international airport. It doesn't change that St. Martin has a sport. So that we are stating that investors will not invest in the country St. Martin, I find it a bit far-fetched. We need to come with data to prove that such will happen.
Okay.
So I want to thank you for the time, and I invite all questions so we can clarify the policy further.
Thank you, Minister Gordon Carty. We have opportunity for the members of Parliament to comment during this Central Committee meeting, ask any questions or comments in regards to that. We also have other members with her here. If there's any technical questions, it can be directed through me to the Minister and her team. So at this time, I look to the floor.